Hello and Happy New Year. Welcome to 21st Century Talk Show. I'm Angelique. 2021 is now upon us, and we pray and hope that it will be a very good and prosperous year for us all. Here at 21st Century Christian, we look to bring the Bible to life in these modern times in which we live. The talk show started as a weekly blog that comes out Friday mornings, 21st Century Godly Living. We'll try to leave a link below so you can check it out. Our belief is whether you're a Christian or not, the Bible shares how we were created, and it is the blueprint for how we can live our best lives. Please share this link with others because you don't know what we're discussing or sharing could impact their lives for the better. Now, our topic for today, COVID-19 and beyond. COVID-19 has taken and destroyed so many lives since its inception. At the recording of this, the vaccine is now being distributed. So this has been recorded in December 2020. So we still felt that it was necessary to do a show and to have a couple of medical experts on to talk about the actual virus and the upcoming vaccines. So to begin, I'd like to introduce marketing extraordinaire, my marketing manager, Mr. Eric Heredia. Eric, please say hello to everyone.
Hey guys, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, Angelique. It's very exciting.
Now, I would like to introduce our distinguished panel guests. First is Dr. Alex Evans. Dr. Evans is a trauma general surgeon who specializes in critical care. He is also a COVID-19 medical advisor, and currently he serves as the trauma medical director of Central Florida Regional Hospital. Dr. Evans, welcome to our show.
Hello.
Our next distinguished guest is Dr. Francoeur Cadet. Dr. Cadet is a multilingual infectious disease physician who speaks English, Spanish, French, Creole, and does some sign language. He did his internal training at Columbia Hospital with his infectious disease fellowship training at Orlando Health. Currently, he works at Orange Blossom Family Health as primary care and infectious disease. Welcome, Dr. Cadet.
Good afternoon. Yes, thanks for having me.
Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you so much for taking the time to come on our talk show. We have a few questions we'd like to ask, but before we do, we want to find out a little bit more about you.
So, Dr. Evans, we brought you out on this COVID, on this episode that we are so excited about. Before we go there, though, I want to ask you, tell us a little bit more about yourself. You know, how do you get involved in this field?
COVID-19 is basically everyone's field at this point in time that's a physician. But I traditionally am a trauma and critical care doctor, and I do general surgery also. I'm the trauma medical director at Central Florida Regional up in Sanford, Florida, just north of Orlando. And I've been here. I did work for Advent Health for a couple of years, and then I had this opportunity to become the director. So I moved up here. But I've been here in the Orlando area now 7 years. And it's been a very wonderful, growing prospect. Everyone is very welcoming, loved it. I originally trained, did med school at University of Florida. I trained in Chicago for 7 years, and I was in the military for another 6 years in the Navy, and then finally made the way back to Johns Hopkins, and then finally down here. So that's it. But when it came to COVID-19, as things started occurring in March, it was clear that the physicians and the teams in the hospital needed someone that they wanted to go to as the person that they could get at least decent information from. So we organized a committee, and I'm chairman of that committee, of the COVID-19 committee, in which we organized information and got it out to the physicians, nurses, and the individuals in the general public. So that's how I got involved in that end.
Okay, perfect. Absolutely. Well, I love it because you are the real deal. You guys, you have the credentials, and we're not just talking to anybody. People that are, been in the field for a while. Now, Dr. Cadet, tell us a little bit more about yourself in regards to how do you get involved at this point into the whole COVID situation?
Well, I'm an internist by nature, and after 10 years, I decided to go back to training to do infectious disease. And near my graduation, in fact, I just graduated in June from Orlando Health. In February, that's when COVID hit. Um, and I thought that was an exciting time to learn as much as I can about the pandemic. I also have a background in public health. I have a master's in tropical disease, environmental health. So I've always been interested about public health. So with this pandemic, I've decided that I was gonna focus on it and learn as much as I can, so I can share with people, especially community of color. And I feel that was something that I was called for in terms of being in the field of infectious disease at this time and having this pandemic to be a voice for the community.
So, first question will go to Dr. Evans. And this is the questions we've gotten. So, to help our viewers, can you briefly explain what's the difference between regular cold flu symptoms and COVID-19? What should we look out for? There's a lot out there, but what can you tell us?
Well, unfortunately, there's not that big of a difference initially. You're going to feel run down. You're going to feel flu symptoms. You're going to feel weakness, tired, like a little bit of a cough. You can sniffles, etc. But some of the things that you want to look out for that may lead you down the COVID-19 route is loss of taste, loss of smell, and excessive tiredness, and then as those progress, if you start getting a cough that does not go away, fevers and chills, you want to get checked out based on that. Now, to be honest with you, unfortunately, there's so many individuals who are carriers now who don't have either any symptoms or have very few symptoms that it behoves us to try to lean against or try to lean towards getting tested regardless, just to rule that out. So if you're connected to a family practice doctor or something that you can go swing by and you say, okay, this has been lingering for 2 or 3 days, didn't go away, yes, I would go and get tested, even if you don't have like the loss of taste or smell, etc. But Dr. Cadet also sees this a lot too, so he may be one to chime in if I missed anything.
Okay. And actually, I do have a little follow-up to what you just said to Dr. Cadet. And actually, let's just go there now since we're talking about testing. Dr. Cadet, based on what Dr. Evans is saying, when you should get tested, there are different tests out there now. And at first, there was not enough kits and didn't know which one. So can you tell us which kit would be the best or the most available that we can get tested when we're wanting to do so?
Okay. Again, thanks for having me. Just before I answer your question, just wanted to add one little thing to Dr. Evans about complications. When it comes to COVID-19, the complication is much faster as opposed to the flu. You could get a week or 2 weeks, and then you can be hit with staph or strep pneumonia. But that COVID-19 can hit you hard very early and very fast. Now, regarding the COVID-19 testing, there are different modalities. You have the molecular test, you have antigen test, and you have antibody test. So it depends on where you are in the spectrum. And each test has their sensitivity, specificity in terms of how reliable they are. For the molecular test, it's about 95% reliable, as opposed to the antigen test that's about 56% reliable. And the antibody test, it depends on where you are in the spectrum, meaning that once you get over the disease, that's after the fact. If it's within 1 week after you get the disease, it might be 30%. 2 weeks after you get the disease, 91% reliable, and so on and so forth, 96%. As you go further, that's when you make the antibody, the IgG. So in terms of testing, you have molecular test, antigen test, and antibody test. The molecular test, that's the test that they've been doing in the beginning in terms of the nasal swab and
PCR.
yes, thank you. The PCR. So they do nasal swab and then they send for the PCR where they multiply the virus to actually detect it. Okay. And then the antigen test, again, that's a type of nasal swab too, but it is the actual virus they're checking and or the protein and the virus. And then the antibody test is actually the blood test that detect your antibody, which is the soldiers that there to fight for you. You're trying to detect those.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I want to ask this, and actually, I'll put this to Dr. Evans, and Dr. K, you can also share your thoughts. The virus, what is the active life of the virus? Meaning when it lands on hard objects, because we've heard this before when it first happened, it goes on clothes or hard objects. There was so much coming in, and we understand the medical community, everybody's human, but you are scientists, and eventually, where is it now? So how long is the active life of the virus on hard objects or on clothes, as opposed to like on your scanner face?
So again, that is actually going to depend on the surface. It's actually also going to depend on the environment, all right, and what you're doing. So in general, we'd say that these things last between 2 to 5 days in general, right? But if we're talking about, let's say, in the clothes, it can last a little longer on clothes. On paper, it's actually stated that it can last up to a week, week and a half. However, on cardboards, they say, okay, yeah, boards or things like that, it's going to be last about 2 to 3 days. So it literally varies. And then the environment, the heat, the more warm the climate is, the less it's going to live. Now, again, this is the reason why we talk about cleanliness, literally just washing your hand. It is just like any other virus, i.e. flu virus or cold virus, etc. It lasts around the same time. All of them do. But because of the virulence or how potent this is, that's why you want to make sure you get rid of it. So washing your clothes normally, washing your hands, bathing, etc. These things get rid of the virus. Now, it has not been even reported as of yet, and they think it's very unlikely that someone can get this stuff through the mail, unless the actual mail carrier has it and he puts it on and then puts it into your mailbox or puts the package in front. It's not going to go from one person across the country and then live and go through all the processes that happen. So that's unlikely, but it is something that is going to be variable. So you're never going to get it's 4 days and it dies, or it's 1 day and it dies for everything, because everything has different properties. I do want to go ahead.
Go ahead.
About that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but very quick. In regards to the clothing, what are some bad habits that people may have that don't clean it properly, like that you see often? In regards, some people wear probably clothing multiple times, and stuff. But I don't know
Jackets.
What common habits that people just don't know that really would clean, or they should keep it, even if the virus is not around. You know what I'm saying? In regards to health.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the things that people wear more often, like don't clean all the time. For example, admittedly, suit jackets or dresses that you have to go to the cleaners or whatever, or big coats, heavy coats, etc. Those things are not clean. Like you'll see the kids, they'll rub their when especially in the winter time, they're doing, and then that doesn't go into the wash that evening. So, we just have to be a little more vigilant in cleaning everything that we have. Have the knowledge and the foresight to say, hey, I can't be the routine person that I was, even 6 months ago. I have to make a shift. So washing more things, even wiping these things down with your regular cleaning agents, those things will help. Specifically if it's a water resistant jacket that you use on the outside, spray it down and wipe it down. I mean, that takes care of it. Again, it's the little things, these little shifts that we can make that's going to make the difference.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. And I was going to ask the same thing, so thank you.
Now, basically, I think this was for Dr. Cadet, I'll give some to you. After receiving a positive test, is someone actually admitted to the hospital, or are they sent home to self-isolate and monitor themselves? And then I have a couple more questions to add on to that. Or actually, I can just get it to you now. And if they're sent home, are they monitored by medical personnel, like in home visits or calls, or just told to come back if it gets worse? And so what is the usual criteria for them being admitted? So it's kind of a loaded question, but I think you got
Yes. And this is a very important question too. So once you turn out to be positive, it depends on where you are, because this COVID-19 disease can be divided into different parts. You can have a mild illness, you can have a moderate illness, or you can have severe illness, or you can have a critical illness. So with the mild illness, which involve a fever, cough, or you may have change in taste or smell, but no problem breathing. In that case, this person can be monitored, can be observed. You can tell them, isolate yourself for the 10 to 14 days, and those are the signs to watch for. If you have shortness of breath, if your oxygen is dropping, you need to go to the hospital immediately. And also, it depends on your comorbidities as well. If you have those illnesses or those symptoms and you have comorbidities, you have to be more careful. And if you have moderate illness, such as the fever, the chill, the cough, and you also have some sign and X-ray in terms of the pneumonia, you need to be seen. You need to go to the hospital because you might be a candidate for medication such as remdesivir. And if you have severe illness, for sure, meaning that very low oxygen and X-ray sign, and you can breathe, you definitely need to hospital. So it all depends on where you are and the severity level, whether you're mild, moderate, severe, or critical.
Okay. Dr. Evans, Dr. Cadet had just mentioned Rezavir. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. The medicine, like it's Rezavir. Okay. And I think President Trump received that when supposedly he was also diagnosed. And it seems like they said in the media that he got like a series cocktail shots and all this, and that it's very expensive. So is this something that a lot of people can get? I mean, it just came to me when he mentioned that. Can you explain a little bit the treatment and why others may not have recovered? Is it just because of different people or what have you? What can you say about that?
So let's back up a little bit and explain a little more. So Dr. Cadet mentioned earlier about antibodies, that your body makes antibodies to everything, any infection that goes along. Same thing with COVID-19. So what happens is that your body initially makes M, they call antibody M, and then IgG, which is the longer term one. Well, what this company has done is they've taken antibodies and they've made more massive amounts of them. Okay. And then now they're taking those antibodies and putting it back into someone who doesn't have antibodies that now is infected. So it's there to basically help fight off those antibodies. What they do is they grab onto the virus or cells that are expressing the term, but showing proteins from the virus, and it grabs onto them and say, hey, this is the one you have to kill. And literally, it's like a signal in there. Hey, come kill this guy here because this one is infected. And in the body, the white cells come and grab onto that and kill them. So what basically is happening is it's giving you. It's like England calling up America and say, hey, we have some bad guys in Afghanistan. Can you come help fight? And we just sent our team in to help fight. So it's an outside source.
I just want to remind everybody that you are also military, right? So you're coming with military explanation.
But
Yes.
people understand that, right? So it's an outside force coming in to help, boom, and then everybody can surround and kill the enemy. That's what's going on with remdesivir. So not everybody can get that, only because initially, first of all, it was only investigative. And then I'm not even sure it's FDA approved as of yet. I know they're looking for that, but it's you can get it under an experimental type program where if you sign up and say, if I get an allergic reaction and die tomorrow, you can't sue me, then yeah, sure, we'll inject you. So it's not widely available to everyone at this point because of that. Now, obviously, it would be available to the President of the United States. He'll just say, yes, I want it. And they bow and say, of course, we'll give it. And they'll give you as many things you want. So, but that's where that's going. Now, will that be something that's commercially available soon? It likely will, because as we know, even with the vaccines, it's going to take almost a year to get to that herd immunity that we're looking for, where about 80% of the population will be immunized, and then we can sort of, protect everyone else. But that's kind of where we're going with that.
Okay, thank you so much. And that did shed a little light for myself even, and I know others. The pushback on the mask, this is for Dr. Cadet. Is it really necessary, which I do believe, that's my own personal, but I'd like to hear from you as a medical expert, is it really necessary to have face masks? Should you have face shields? What? Should you wear gloves when you go out to the shop? Some people do, some people don't. What is your call on that? What is your thoughts?
All right, I'm going to answer the easier one first. The gloves, I would say no, not really, unless you can wear the glove and then dispose it right away, because you tend to contaminate yourself with gloves. But it's important after you touch something to use hand sanitizer or wash your hands. That's the glove part. For the mask is very, very important. We cannot get through this even with a vaccine until we get herd immunity at about 70%, unless we do the triple W's, which is the wearing of masks, washing your distance, and then the third thing is
washing hands.
And washing your hands. Thank you. Washing your hands. So we cannot get away from those. So with the mask, it is very important that we wear masks at all times if we're gonna be in public, in the clinic setting, in the mall, when you're shopping, in church. It is really important because studies have shown that masks actually work. Okay. In fact, even if both of us wear masks, there's still a chance of transmitting the virus, but it's so much lower, like a 2% chance. So I don't know if you don't wear. So if you have two people, one has COVID, may not be aware of it, and is not wearing mask, the other one wear mask, that's about 70% chance of getting COVID. If the person who has COVID, if another person has COVID, wear mask, and if the friend does not wear mask, that's about 5% of getting it. So the point is, you need to wear mask all the time. Even if two people wear masks, you still have a small chance. So masks are extremely important to wear. All right. And not only to wear masks, but also the type of mask you wear and how you wear the mask. Type of mask, meaning that the mask, the gator neck, no good. The bandanas, no good. The fashion mask are no good. You know, some people try to match their mask with the outfit. No, unless it is cotton made. If it's 100% cotton, double layer, that's a better mask. I mean, I guess having mask is better than no mask, but I'm just saying that it depends on the type of mask that you have. So if you have the surgical mask, that's good. If you have the cotton ones, that's good, especially if they are double. That's great. So it's the type of mask. Also, it's how you wear the mask. I've noticed people, especially in the clinic when my patients come, they have their mask below their nose. That's not effective. Or above their mouth and just cover the nose. That's not effective. Or in their neck. That's not effective. Or on their forehead. I mean, you may be fashionable, but you're not protecting yourself. So yes. Masks definitely work, but it depends on the type of mask, also how you wear the mask.
Okay, thank you so much.
I
And
would like to. I would like to say I do see individuals wearing the surgical mask below and then the fashion mask above. That's perfect. That's a lot, but I mean, because you have a lot of stuff there, but it's better than just the fashion mask. But even the fashion mask and the gaiter is better than nothing. So I prefer something, but we'd like to get to the best. And I agree with Dr. Cadet.
I think we should create a brand, Cadet. It should have a seal. If the mask is good, it will have the Dr. Cadet seal on it. This is
This is What about the face shield? We mentioned that. Is it really necessary? I mean, when I see face shields, to me, it seems like you could still get the virus underneath, because there are people with face shields that have no mask on. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Was that for me?
Yes, Dr. Cadet.
Yes. So face shield, the more protection you can give yourself, the better. When you wear the face shield, the idea behind that is to prevent you from touching your eyes or touching your nose. So when you wear the face shield, you actually, that's an extra layer of protection. So it's not, you can just wear the face shield. You should wear the mask first, and then you add the face shield as an additional protection. So they go together, actually.
Thank you, because there are people who wear just a face shield and no mask, and that to me is not good. But thank you for clarifying that.
Right.
Okay, Dr. Evans.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, wait.
No, I was just gonna comment that there is always a small chance of getting the virus infected through your eyes. So, some sort of eye protection is always a good thing. It's not going to be easy to tell the entire population to wear goggles, but just to know that that's part of it. So if you're wearing the face shield as an eye protection and you have your mask, that's actually much better.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So Dr. Evans, the vaccine. So many questions that center around this vaccine, social media platforms, various videos, articles, just plain talk of folks talking about the vaccine. Some claim it's the mark of the beast. They claim that there's secret codes embedded into the vaccine that they're injecting you with. Being medical professionals, and I'll first, like I said, go with Dr. Evans. What can you share with us regarding this vaccine, and is it safe to take? I know this is a loaded one.
Well, I will say, first of all, that it is safe to take. But to understand what these terms mean, it's interesting to me that people they grab onto certain lingo and they turn it into what they want it to be. So you mentioned it has a code. Well, yes, it does have a code. It's a code sequence. That's how we make it. We've made it like that since the 80s when we first started dabbling into DNA and RNA. That's how we figured out the entire code of our genetics. So it's a genetic code, yes. Can you now manipulate these messenger RNAs to then do what you want, i.e. microbots? They do things. Well, guess what? That's what the whole field has been since the 90s. We've been trying to engineer viruses so they go in and attack certain things and stop certain things from happening. So that is what your flu virus has been for the last 50 years. And now we're just perfecting it by getting it more specific to this particular COVID-19. So when people say all these things, it's a lack of real, true knowledge, I should say, the understanding what the things are and what we've done for now tens of years. So in general, this is a vaccine that has now been created just like any other vaccine. However, why has it been the fastest one? Because it's literally, this COVID-19 virus literally stopped the entire world. We've not had a big world pandemic like this probably in about 100 years is when it literally stopped everything. And guess what? In 1920s, it was a flu vaccine. And if we still have, I'm gonna say a flu virus that stopped the world. And if we still have pictures of people in England wearing, guess what? masks. So they did it before and we're doing it again. But this time we have a little more knowledge, a little more ingenuity so that these large companies were able to focus, stop all their other production and focus singularly on getting these viruses out, these messenger RNAs out in the form of a vaccine that they can now go into the individuals and cause the very thing I explained before, which is the antibody reaction. Once you have the antibody reaction, the IgG is in your body. It floats around. The minute it sees something that even smells like COVID-19, it attacks it. Your body attacks it. You don't even, sometimes you won't even have a fever or a chill, or you won't even know anything about it. Sometimes you will, but it will not cause the long-term effects or the larger effects of COVID-19. I hope that helped.
Yes, it does help because people have talked about there's stuff in it and what's in it. Some say animal byproducts or what have you, but basically you explain it is sequencing that they use, but it's a safe sequencing that they have to use that goes in and attacks the virus, bottom line, correct?
Yes. And do you have anything to add,
Yes.
Dr. Cadet?
Yes,
Yeah.
oh, absolutely. To their defense, people, they've been bombarded with information, especially from the wrong source, like
Yes.
Twitter, WhatsApp, Facebook. I mean, this information goes like 40,000 times a day. You have
There
all
are people who say they're
people.
nurses and all this, and I'm a doctor, and this is what I say, and then they pass these around. So go ahead.
Right. And for me as a believer, the way I understand it, the Mark 6:6 is gonna be after the rapture. It's not even before that. So the idea of is the mark of the beast, I think that's really a big misunderstanding, and that's really misinformation. And this type of vaccine, as Doc was saying, Dr. Evans, is basically new technology. They've started them, they just perfect them in terms of coming up with this great technology. And so far, they spend a lot of time, well, 2 months at least, studying those vaccine with 44,000 people on the Pfizer and then 30,000 on the Moderna group. So they've been studied, I mean, we're not going to say extensively, but at least 2 months and quite a bit of diversity. I mean, you have 40% over 55-year-old, 58% over 65-year-old. I'm sorry, 58%, 16 to 55-year-old, and then 21% over 65-year-old. 9% black, 83% white, and then 35% obese, 46% other chronic disease. And then you have people from Argentina, from Africa, a little bit everywhere participating in those trials. So there is some confidence that the vaccine not only is effective, but it's also safe. And one thing that I would like to add, there is a third party, which is a group of people designed to look over that. So there is transparency there and there is independency. So this group is independent and also transparent in terms of watching over the performance of the vaccine. So.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I'm very quick. Now that we have so many resources put out for this vaccine, the entire world has stopped, and the technology at this point has also advanced. Do you think that this will help finding a vaccine for other things like malaria that we haven't yet figured that out, for the STDs and stuff like that? We haven't figured that out yet. Because that's when you hear we got a vaccine for COVID, but in a way we still don't have a vaccine for the flu. But we have a vaccine for the malaria. With all those resources, do you think the consequences or the resources available now will be better for other types of vaccines?
That's it. For me, in my opinion, that's a great idea, and we could, but you got to understand, vaccine, it depends on who's doing the project. Like for the developed country, it's easier to come up with that, and depends on who's impacted by this. I mean, look at Ebola. Ebola has been around for 40 years. Finally, a few people, that's just my opinion, a few people in the US get it, and then now, they start working on the vaccine. And so it depends on how much money you have and who's impacted. But the potential is there, as you say.
Ask you this other
Yeah,
question.
that's good. It's about money.
Right.
This
Right.
question: Are you? Is it possible that, I guess, if there's a virus in a country that is not developed, they most likely the solution for that is not a priority.
Yes. I don't know what Dr. Evans think of that, but
That,
a lot of time that's the case.
unfortunately, that's the case. So even here in America, when there are diseases that are not as prevalent, so they're very, niche communities that unfortunately it doesn't even have to be a poor situation, but just not enough people who are affected by it, then it really takes a company millions of dollars to come up with these things.
Yes.
I'm an investor in biotech, and when I review these companies, they're spending just to get one thing out. They're spending between 30 to 150 to 200 million dollars just to study one thing, depending on what it is. Because even to do just the research, you have to pay the individuals you're going to bring into the research. You have to do a lot. There's so many different things that are in play. So if you have a small niche type of disease, they need to a company, if they're going to invest, and unfortunately this is, unless the government is the one paying for it, the company is going to invest, they have to see a return, or else guess what? You, me, we as the public, we're not going to let that company survive. We're going to see it on the stock market and not invest in it, right? So that's the whole point in that situation. But in answer to your first question, I strongly believe, just like we're on this platform right now, we've changed business. Business no longer is going to be as it was before, where individuals are flying around the world just to meet in person. A lot of business is going to be held over video link, over Zoom, over webcast, over any of these lots of platforms. Same thing now with medical industry. Things are going to come now. They have the engineering and they have the forthright to bring things faster, and we know that the FDA has the ability to review things faster. So yes, you're going to see that pressure. You should see things come out that were taking longer before. However, it's still going to be, at the end of the day, a capitalistic thing. And if there are governments that want to then shift in their interest into building or protecting their populations by coming forth with antigens and antibodies, etc., sure, that would be great. But the government has to do that. In America, we spend over 12, almost 13% of our gross national product. No, I'm sorry, it's 20%. Almost 20% of our gross national product in healthcare. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Most countries don't do that. So that's actually our criticism.
They don't have the means to.
They don't have the means, but so if a country like, let's call one South Africa, Nigeria, or any of the Malaysia, any of these countries wanted to take their slice of the pie and say, no, we're going to take 15%, and that 15% of the gross national product, we're going to now shift that to research and for our population. That'll be great, but they're not doing that. So it's not just America; it's just the whole world needs to change its vision on healthcare in order to make some dents.
Wow.
Thank you so much. Real quick, I wanted to continue in these shots, because I understand Pfizer and Moderna, I think the two companies that are producing the shot, and I heard somewhere, or at least read somewhere, that some are saying Moderna is better than Pfizer or what have you. So what have you, just quickly, if you can, share with us on those two? Dr. Evans.
Of course, me again.
Sorry. Yeah. We'll go to Dr. Cadet next.
No, so as we know, Pfizer is the one that finally got approval, and they started actually their distribution in Europe, and had some issues with some allergic reaction. We haven't seen that yet with Moderna. One of the reasons why people are saying Pfizer is less or Moderna is better than Pfizer or vice versa is because Pfizer, their virus or their vaccine requires a tough storage. It's like minus 70 degrees Celsius, and it's hard to store it. Once it comes out, it lasts about 3 to 4 days in a refrigerator, and you have to get rid of it. Whereas Moderna, I think it's -2 to -10 degrees, and it actually lasts about a week in a regular refrigerator. So that just makes dispensability faster. And unfortunately or fortunately, we've seen even in the stocks market how Moderna has risen, whereas Pfizer has not, literally because they feel like they are going to be able to dispense faster. There's AstraZeneca. They're actually on the docket to get also their approval coming out. Obviously, AstraZeneca's out of Europe, but there's a few other companies that are making their headways. Once we flood the market with all these things, I think that we'll see a balance. And will Pfizer be the top one? Maybe, maybe not. It all depends on availability and where. But right now, the two that are slated to come out and strongly hit our market are Pfizer and Moderna.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Cadet, who should be first in line to get the shot?
Well, just like they prioritize it right now in terms of priority with the healthcare workers at the front line, and then the elderly, and then people with chronic condition, I think that's pretty fair. It's a fair, and then hopefully it will be equitable. Nobody will be left in the back line. I think that's reasonable. Now you have teachers and some other workers. They have some kind of what do you call those? Labor union.
Okay.
They try to advocate for the teachers in terms of getting it. But somebody got to come up front. Somebody got to wait. So in terms of the healthcare workers, because we're dealing with patients every day, and then the elderly, because it affects elderly, they have worse outcome, and people with chronic disease, obesity, hypertension, diabetes, and so on and so forth. I think that's really a fair allocation of the vaccine.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Cadet, also sticking with you, after receiving it, how long does it take to begin working, and how long is it supposed to be effective? Because I heard different things that, so if you can talk about that.
Sure. That's a good question. Now, I would like to go back a little bit with the vaccine between Pfizer and Moderna. Pretty much everything is the same except for the timeline. One is 20. First of all, you have to have a prime, okay, where you get one shot, and then after 3 weeks, you get another shot, a second shot.
Oh wow!
Okay,
yes.
That's Pfizer, 21 days, and then for Moderna, after 4 weeks, you get the second shot. So there's the prime shot, and then the boost shot. The booster in 21 days for Pfizer, and then 28 days for Moderna. If you want to call that a difference, you can call that. But usually it's the second week, 1 to 2 weeks. Really, and the second, just like it really is any other vaccine. A lot of vaccines work like that. After 2 weeks, you start getting some benefit. So 2 weeks after the second shot, you will start seeing some benefit. Even though they say even the first shot, but if you get some true benefit after 2 weeks. Now, I don't know if you're gonna get to this, but there were some things that were not studied now. Based on research, what was studied, the vaccine will protect us against diseases, not infection, which means that if I get the shot, I'm not gonna develop the disease, meaning that I'm not gonna be symptomatic, the cough, the fever, the chill, the complication being in the ICU. But that doesn't mean I may, if I'm exposed, I may not get the virus in my nose and being able to transmit that. We don't know that yet. So just
Oh,
to
wow.
that's why
Thank you.
masks and washing hands are still gonna be with us until we have that herd immunity. Just want to
Okay.
clarify that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you did because it kind of leads me to my next question. But also with what I asked you, how long is it supposed to be effective? Because I've read somewhere where they said maybe after 6 months, and then you need to get it again or something, or
Well, yeah, very good question. We don't know yet because a lot of the viruses we get them every year in terms of immunity usually last 6 to 12 months. So we may have to get vaccinated every year or every 2 years. So we don't know for sure.
Just think
Okay.
of the flu virus. We get the flu every year, especially as
That's a
health
yearly.
care. Yeah. So just think of it that it is a cold virus. It is a corona is a respiratory virus coming out of the Middle East. I mean, sorry, the Far East. The way all of our colds come, and so yes, you can expect. Don't be surprised that it's a once a year thing.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, Dr. Evans, I have this question for you. Assuming most folks get the vaccine and are developing an immunity, when do you anticipate things get back to normal? Or where are you hoping medical community is looking?
So it depends on what you mean by back to normal. As I mentioned before, we have now
Pre-COVID.
Well, we've shifted now beyond pre-COVID. There is no going back to pre-COVID with all the things that we did. But if you're asking about not having to wear masks everywhere, yeah, I think that's when you're talking about herd immunity. And herd immunity is going to be, as we mentioned before, between 70 and 80% of the population in America having had antibodies or have had the COVID-19. So you've either have had to have been exposed or you had the vaccine or both. You need to be about 80% of the population. Well, there's 330 million people in our country. So that's quite a bit. That's over 280 million people that has to have it before you can say we have herd immunity. And that is going to be, actually, I'm going to be honest with you, is probably going to be more political than a number that is set.
Yeah.
What's going to happen is, more than likely, is once the vaccinations start going out and we reach a point where we see the number of infections documented going down, along with the number of hospitalizations, particularly hospitalizations, because as Dr. Cadet mentioned, it's the hospitalizations that we're trying to avoid with the vaccination, not infection. Same thing with the flu virus. You don't tell everybody you're never going to get the flu. You say you're giving them the flu vaccination every year so they don't get sick with the flu. And so again, once we start seeing the number of hospitalizations dramatically decreasing, it's going to be a political pull. It's going to be like, oh, the hospitals are fine, so let's go back to normal. And then you're going to see things opening up faster and faster and faster.
Thank you so much. This is going to help so many people. It helps me. So I'm going to be closing. A couple more questions. As medical professionals, what do you hope to see in the future regarding the population as well as the government's response to this virus? I mean, you kind of touched on it, but just kind of bringing it in. What do you hope to see?
For me, I really would like to see people come together to make things happen, not making political statement about the disease, especially for me being infectious disease. I think that's something that we have to come together to help each other out rather than being politically divided, because the common enemy is not really us or people, it's really the virus. So there needs to be more preparedness and more unity when it comes to fighting the next pandemic. And it's going to happen. I mean, I may not be around within the next 100 years, but another pandemic will happen if the Lord Jesus has come back in.
Yes. Thank you. Dr. Evans, your thoughts? What would you like to see?
I mimic the same things, but in addition, what we have to do as a community, as he mentioned, we need vast amount of testing available to people at a very low cost or free.
Yeah.
So we need to know where we are in the community. Now that testing can even be, as we mentioned the tests before, they can even either be just the antigens, because antigens are getting better. They're around 50% now. Now they're up to 70%, 80%. It can even be the antigen, which is looking for the proteins of the virus, or it can just be the antibody tests, which are literally just pricking your finger and knowing how many people in a community are now immunized. But we need to have more of an organized public health effort in knowing where we are. Then coupled with that, with the distribution, as we are already on that process of the vaccination, with good information so people understand this is safe, this is something that we should do, so we can get to herd immunity. Because if 50% of the population say, no, I'm not going to take it, we're not going to get to herd immunity. Now, eventually we will, because those 50%, those whatever, 150, 180 million people, most of them are going to get it, unfortunately. And some of them are going to die, but at the end of the day, they'll be immunized by getting it. And so we'll get there. It just will take a little longer. The point is that we need good information and we get good vaccination distribution, and you will see hopefully that coming. And everyone needs to not, as Dr. Cadet said, not show or not explain things in propaganda, but really try to take away a lot of this hoopla and be specific to what we need to do as a community. Whether it be schools,
work together.
Yeah, exactly. Whether it be schools, policies, local governments, etc., have the same message to everyone. Once you have the same message, I think we'll be able to get across this.
Absolutely, and not have the political system going against you guys meaning the medical community, because you're trying to help people live and live better and healthy lives, not trying to go against. Final question for you both. From your perspective, how is the healthcare system doing? Because we reported that there's rapid fatigue amongst the medical personnel, medical facilities are nearing capacity. And without naming specifics, just your general assessment, where is the health system and how is it doing?
Well,
either Dr. Evans or Dr. Cadet. Okay.
I think there's a lot of fatigue out there. We've been dealing with this for nine months now. And initially there was a lot of, emotional stressors that happened. Thankfully, we got a little bit of a reprieve in the summer. Again, because as I mentioned before, just like any other virus, this thing kind of dies down with the heat. But as the winter has come up, it's come back again, along with the fact that we did open up a little bit, and then we had some transmissions. So, the hospitals are getting full again. Thankfully, we're not seeing the rate of death that we did before, but it's still significant and it's very important. The other thing is that we're not seeing the rate of ICU as we did before, but still it's significant and it's very important. So these hospitals are filled, people are working more, and yes, there's going to be some fatigue, and anything that we can do from a public standpoint to each individual hospital and private institution, we need to continue to promote the health and the well-being and support our nurses, our physicians, and all our healthcare workers of any kind, and the frontline people. We're talking about the firemen; they're still working. Policemen are still working. The EMS are still working. The grocery boy is still working. You're buying groceries. I mean, they're considered essential, so they're there for us. So we need to make sure we support all these individuals, not just healthcare, but the extension of all the people that support us.
Our service individuals. Thank you so much for sharing that, and that's true. Dr. Cadet?
For me, I think that healthcare workers are getting emotionally and physically fatigued and frustrated. Emotionally and physically fatigued, and that they see their patients being sick, being critical, dying, and also their loved ones. They have to quarantine themselves, and some physicians and nurse practitioners mention nurses. They mention how they cannot hold their kids. I mean, you're talking about loss of for the personal activity interaction. So it's they are very fatigued and also frustrated by the fact that some people are still not listening when it comes to advice on minimize the traveling. You see 6 million people traveling for Thanksgiving. And then now you're gonna have Christmas, and then you're gonna have New Year. So they really tired of seeing that the community sometimes they're not cooperative when it comes to keeping this pandemic under control. So I hope that we help them by doing our part, and I hope the community, they do that. They really realize how healthcare workers are fighting for them, but also they need to do their part.
Yes, I found it very useful for you guys shared, but I would always like to stay in contact with you, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to do that. Do you guys have any Instagram or any Facebook or any websites that people can follow you guys and just kind of find information, or at least a place that you recommend that where people could go to?
Absolutely. For me, it's Cadets, CADETS Solutions, cadets.solutions slash, that's my website. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm on Facebook, Instagram under Francoeur Cadet, FRANCOEUR, Cadet, CADET.
Perfect. All right, Dr. Evans, what about you?
I'm currently on Instagram, Medicine to Ministry. You can look me up there, and I occasionally give some information there, but that's kind of the best. And you can always message me there if you want to ask some questions on COVID-19, and I'll definitely answer.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to follow you guys because it's very, very useful information. Facebook and on the websites can be good when you get the right source. So
yes, Eric, I'm also on YouTube. So if you want more information about COVID-19, hypertension, diabetes, I have a page under Cadet Solutions for the Body and Soul. That's the name of the company, of the association. You can find me there. Different educational materials for you.
Excellent.
We'll put them all underneath. People will be able to see this, and that's one of the posts, so people can always follow you and reach out to you guys. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank you, gentlemen, for being on. Thank you all who tuned in for our 21st Century Talk Show on COVID, crisis, and beyond. I hope this helps. It helped me tremendously, as well as I believe Eric Heredia. It helped him in realizing what's really going on from a medical perspective. So these doctors are here, as well as the medical staff in community, as well as the service community, like you said, from groceries, delivery people, UPS, FedEx. I can't name them all, but there's everybody, Amazon who delivers things. So there's so many out there who are working to deliver for us, your car places where you get your car service. So there's a lot of people who are servicing us in this community. So try to wear your mask, your face mask for sure, maybe the shield if you have to. Don't unnecessarily. Yes, wash your hands. Use your sanitizer. So please, in the community, stay safe. And even if you're not sick, you may cause someone else to be sick. So just for yourself and for your loved ones, family, friends, neighbor, be neighborly and to be safe. So thank you again, and I pray this helps. And next, we're going to be looking at health this new year. Also, I want to put a point here. I said at the beginning, I'll say it again. This was recorded right in December, right when the vaccine is coming out. So if you hear these talks, even though the show is here in January, it was recorded earlier, but still it's going to be valuable to you to let you know what's going on. Thanks again, and we will see you soon, 21st Century Christian. Take care.
Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.